What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Talking Thursday's smallish split 5-game slate, 3 early games, 2 late, but we're breaking it down in the MLB streets. Thanks for joining us today. I'm sure a lot of you watching USA with a Olympic scare in basketball, but pulled it out in the end. Joined today, as often on Thursday afternoons, by Mr. Travis Mangone. Mangone, how you doing on this Thursday afternoon?
Yeah, I'm not feeling the best, but we're battling. I've watched Olympics all day. I've literally been sleeping all day watching the Olympics. I think I saw the track. I saw volleyball. Pretty much watched it all today. So saw USA as well. They battled back. Happy to see them get that W. And I believe they play France, so that'll be fun. We can have some Rudy Gobert sucks conversation in the gold medal final. It'll be a lot of fun.
It might be tough. They got that. I don't know if you saw Wemby's line against Germany, quadruple double with 10 blocks as well. Just absolutely absurd stuff from him. So that'll be a fun game, I'm sure. And yeah, you watched Olympics all day. I think that probably has you ahead of my entirety of the Olympics watching. I think I watched one day for a couple hours. I couldn't pull the Kevin Fallick, who seems to be watching Olympics around the clock. I don't know. Watched a little bit. Not really for me. I'd rather watch day 112 of baseball with the same guys going back and forth.
I'm not a huge Olympics guy either, DC, but we've been I've been in New Jersey with my family, and my grandma really likes to watch like politics like all day, and like we made a conscious effort to be like big Olympians throughout this like next 2 weeks, so we could like change the channel a little bit. So and honestly, it's been more enjoyable than I thought. So that's one of the reasons why I've watched it way more too. I haven't gone out of my way to be like, I really want to watch something, maybe a basketball game because I played some DFS slates, but that's really it.
Is Grandma Mangone a all-day Fox watcher or an all-day CNN watcher?
It's Fox News 24/7. You get to see it all, man. You gotta watch Jesse Waters. You get to watch Sean Hannity. You get to watch them all. It's a marathon.
We're not going to go into politics on this show, but I do feel like most people the old people that watch politics all day long, the majority of them are on the old Fox News channel. So
yeah.
We'll leave it at that. We have 5 games to talk about. We can certainly dive in depth on these games. Don't know if we'll need the full hour or not. Got to get back to these Olympics and best ball drafts and all that good stuff. But we will, of course, dive in now. As I mentioned, there are just 5 games to talk about. I don't think we're going to see any weather issues on this slate, so should be good to go there. The one game that does have potential for some rain is the first game on the slate. It is the Yankees and the Los Angeles Angels. We've got 2 lefties going here. Nestor Cortez for the Yankees, Tyler Anderson for the Angels. Both these guys have pitched pretty well this season. Not 2 pitchers who I play much of in general. Obviously, 5-game slate, you got to kind of consider everything. There is some wind blowing in from center field and not super hot in New York. So not the greatest of hitting weather here in Yankee Stadium. And then, I'll pull up ownership here in a minute. But Cortez, Anderson, I assume Anderson is kind of completely out of consideration for you as he is for me. Cortez, I do imagine we'll get some ownership here at 7,900. I think he's a reasonable play. I also think you could play some of that right-handed power for the Angels as a one-off. Cortez does give up his fair share of power, especially to right-handed hitters. Has given up, 20 home runs on the year. So you can certainly go deep off Cortez. The Angels, as bad as they are, do have some decent hitters against lefties, at least. I'll throw it over to you, though, man, going for Cortez, Anderson, Angels, and Yankees.
Yeah, definitely an interesting game here. Listen, Cortez is the projected number 1 play on SaberSim over here at RPS. He's number 1 right now in the projections, and I'm sure in most spots he is, right? He's 7.9K. He's not like, he's not 9K or 10K where you can make an argument there's better point per dollar guys. Like, he is the top pitcher and like kind of the point per dollar guy, you could argue. So, I mean, he's going to be insanely owned on this slate. And DC, you and I have talked about this a lot. We've talked about slates where there's really good pitchers on the mound and we go, I'm not playing that guy, even though I know he's really good, and I'll get in there and play like, I don't know, Kyle Gibson, right? Like we've definitely rostered some dusty guys at low ownership for unique constructions. The big debate's going to be, is this a spot that's like the Blake Snell spot? If you remember not too long ago, Blake Snell was 8K. And then he absolutely just dominated week after week after week. I don't see him as Blake Snell caliber, right? We know that there's issues with someone like Cortez with the power, like you talked about. I think we have to consider fading Cortez. And not just fading, underweight's fine. If you're an MME guy, like he's just going to be insanely owned. And I understand we're going to go through these pitchers. And as I've said on the 5 gamers, there's some elite pitching slates. This is not an elite pitching slate. This is a gross one. So I don't want to play Tyler Anderson either. I'm not looking to attack this Yankees team with him. So I'm gonna have to find some other alternatives. We'll obviously dive in and keep talking about it. But for me, I want to play more the ownership game. And on this slate, I just can't get excited about Cortez. I think you can make a very good argument for the Angels being an interesting leverage on this slate. The only reason I would say you don't need to do it is look at the slate. We don't have any studs to spend on, right? If we had Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal, yes, the Angels would make more sense as a value on these type of specific slates where you can just play almost any pitcher and like you don't feel like you need to spend the salary. That's where I actually don't get as excited about some of these like cheaper bats and offenses. Now, of course, they could just be the winner and put up 10 runs. The reason to do it, it's not because you need the top end pitchers. It's just simply a leverage play against the high owned Cortez. I typically like it when it's like a combination of both, but it's just the one thing. I don't also get a really good top end pitcher. So that's definitely one issue that would, I think is a little bit of a problem when stacking up the Angels. But if you think Cortez gets blown up and it's via the long ball, like you talked about with 20 home runs, I mean, the Angels have to be in play to a certain degree. And they also do help fill out a couple positions that can be a little tough to roster at times. Logan O'Hoppe, I know he's one guy that's typically in there. I'm going to pull up the lineup now to make sure he's in there, but he's one of them. Zach Neto, I definitely don't want to sleep on him. I know I've done a lot of after hours playbooks, and Zach Neto has been an absolute hero. He's just been crushing lately, and I'm going to just keep playing him a little bit, so I don't mind him in a mini. Logan O'Hoppe is in there. He is 4.4K. And then like Pilar at 4.8 is not bad as well. So I think minis, it's definitely not the worst here to take some shots. And if you do want to target the short porch like a Mickey Moniak just to chase the power upside, you certainly can. So Angels are definitely in play. Yankees are in play too. But I think one of the biggest stands I'm taking on this slate is I'm just not playing Nestor Cortez. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to figure out another way to kind of beat the field.
Yeah, I mean, you compared Cortez to Blake Snell, which Cortez is kind of like a little bit of like a steady Eddie, right? Where he's not a super high upside guy. He doesn't get blown up that often. Snell's the opposite of that. It seems like we either get horrible Blake Snell or amazing Blake Snell. And it's like, it's not even alternating starts. It's like streaks of it. So yeah, I don't think, like this Cortez is not a guy who is unfadable really in any matchup. And I get why he's chalk on this slate, but I certainly think he's by no means a slam dunk here. You said you're fading Cortez. I got my normal 5 lineups tonight. I'm not playing 50, 60% Cortez on this slate. Just not going to do it. There's 3 or 4 other pitchers I think that you can reasonably play. Cortez isn't that cheap. Like he's, reasonably priced, certainly at 7,900, but certainly not a price point where he can't fail. And it's a great leverage spot, right? If you're not playing Cortez, the Angels do have bats who hit lefties well. You mentioned Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe. I think you can go to Kevin Pilar. I don't think I will be going to Mr. Anthony Rendon. Did he hit a home run yet? Nope. Stuck on 0 still is Rendon.
He did. DC, get this is a good one. I bet his over on runs yesterday, and he was on second twice and third once, and he still didn't score. So that was very frustrating, but it was really good juice. I couldn't complain. So it lost, but the Zach Neto stuff hit, and he's been on fire. Like just plug and play.
The Angels do have a super low team total. Part of that is the good Yankees bullpen, which obviously hurts the Angels bats overall, but if you're playing Angels bats, I don't know if I'm going to try to go with like the full 5-man Angels stack, but you don't need to. Pick off one or two guys you think can, go deep off of Cortez. And if they do, like those are the home runs that really launch you up the leaderboard. All the teams with Cortez fall while you jump them all with the 14-point home run. So, yeah, I guess if I had to rank the Angels, which we do have time to do on this show, I think it would be Ohapi number 1, Neto 2, Joe Adell 3, and Kevin Pillar 4. I mostly want the righties, and I want guys who can go deep. Those are I think the best 4. Drury would be 5, and then I guess Anthony Rendon 6. But I'm not playing Anthony Rendon. Maybe you can draw a walk or two, right? Keep the line moving for the Angels, but I just can't play a man who has 0 home runs here on August 8th. Not going to be for me, but I'm with you.
It's a 5-game slate. You don't have to 5-man the Angels, right?
No.
Do like a 4-3-1 and just play Neto, Pillar, and like Ohapi, right? That's solid. If you want to make it a 4-man instead and not put Rendon, just grab Adell, like you said. I don't mind a Moniak at the bottom of the lineup either. I mean, there's options. So you don't have to just full on 5-man on a 5-game slate. There's other different constructions that I think you can kind of take advantage of. And I think the Angels are a spot where you look at the pricing and you just say to yourself, I don't need 5 cheap guys, right? I just don't, because look at the pricing on this slate, especially some of the cheap pitchers that we're going to get to.
Yeah. And even just like the little 2-man stack, Neto, Ohapi, I think those 2 are clearly the best plays. But yeah, the 5 or 6 that I mentioned, I think are all reasonable ways to go. And listen, we're not saying that Nestor Cortez isn't going to have a good game or that he couldn't end up on the winner. It's just a probability thing for the both of us. I feel better about getting to the top of the tournament playing some contrarian Angels power than I do playing chalk Nestor Cortez. Obviously, if you're trying to min cash or something, yes, Cortez is a play. And more often than not, maybe we look dumb for not playing Cortez, but that's not the point of the game. The point of DFS GPPs, which I assume is most people watching the show, is to try to get up to, a top 1% or even better lineup. And today on this slate, I think fading Cortez, getting maybe a couple Angels bats, 3-4 of them even, I think is a good way to go. So similar approaches to us with this game. What about the Yankees side? Haven't talked about that much. Tyler Anderson, I know he's been good this season. There's no way I'm playing him here at 8,500. Now, nobody's going to play him. So if you think he's going to pitch well, then jump on board of 5% Tyler Anderson. But it won't be for me. Certainly have interest in the Yankees bats. What they're doing with Judge right now is pretty crazy. So many intentional walks for this guy. It's like almost like the Barry Bonds treatment of 20 years ago now. But still, I mean, I still like Judge. I like Giancarlo Stanton a lot in that 4-hole. And really, almost any of these Yankees bats, I think, are pretty good plays. Tyler Anderson actually has something of reverse splits over the last 2 combined years, where he's actually given up more power to lefties and more overall production. So don't sleep on guys like Soto. Jazz Chisholm Jr., I think, is a decent play. Austin Wells. I do think the Yankees look pretty good to me here against Tyler Anderson. I'm sure they'll carry a decent amount of ownership today as well. What are you doing with the Tyler Anderson versus Yankees matchup, Mango?
Yeah, I agree. And that short porch is there. So all the stuff you said with the lefties, I like. Like I might argue just play Juan Soto instead of Judge. He's just going to see better pitches, right? In tournaments, we're trying, like if you're playing tournaments and you're stacking the Yankees up, of course, add Judge in there, right? Because if you get a pile of runs, it's likely because he's on base and he walks a bunch. And of course, he could hit that home run too. So I don't want to discount that. But like, if you're just looking for a one-off option or like a 2-man, I don't know. I'm not saying I don't want Judge, but if I'm just thinking of ownership versus him and Soto, I just think Soto at this moment is getting better pitches. Now that could change in a couple days, but just right now, that's how it kind of feels. So I think just from an ownership perspective, I would like Soto a little bit more than Judge. And I'm mainly looking at the minis on the Yankees. And I don't know if I'm going to even get there and play that much of them, because I like some other expensive offenses that we'll get to. We obviously don't like a lot of pitching on this slate, which means we'll like some offenses for sure. And Yankees are a good play. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm just picking another team today that I think that I'm going to. So unless I can find another way to be unique. I guess the Cortez fade depends on what his FanDuel ownership is going to be, I guess, at pitcher. If it's like 70% or something insane, sure. Maybe I'll play some Yankees to be different, but they do feel like a popular offense that I just am going to fade to play another one. And I've done that with the Mets the past couple of days, and I'm perfectly fine with doing it here with the Yankees.
Yeah, a couple of people asking about the weather in this one. So it is the kind of the, remnants or whatever of the hurricane that is getting some rain in the New York area. Looking at the radar now, I do think it's possible they'll have to play through some light rain in this one, but I believe this is the last time I'm sure it's the last time the Angels play in New York. Obviously, the cross-country flight there. My guess is they want to get this game in. It's the last game of the series, kind of inconvenient to reschedule it. And I don't think there's going to be any serious rain here. So, again, we still have exactly 2 hours right now before lock. And, of course, we'll monitor it. But I do think this game is very, very likely to play. And I think most likely plays without any delay or anything like that. So that's my take on it as of now. We'll obviously, of course, monitor it. But I am approaching this slate as if this game is going to play without issue. We'll see if that holds up over the next couple of hours or so. Let's jump into Baltimore and Toronto up next. This one has a 9 total. Kevin Gausman pitching at home here against the Orioles. His home road splits are really bizarre. He's been crushed at home. 6.4 ERA at home versus 2.7 on the road. It's hard to know what to make of that.
Is it matchup sensitive, DC? We've talked about that a lot on the show.
I mean, if you're buying into it, you're basically saying, like, I assume that, like, there's some reason that Kevin Gausman can't pitch well in what is honestly a pretty decent pitcher's park in Toronto. I think unless you have I don't have it, unless you have some reason why he can't pitch well at home, I think it's mostly okay to kind of disregard those types of numbers. It's not Coors Field or something like that where it would make sense. That said, if you're looking for a reason to fade Gausman or get on the Orioles, I guess it is a slight bump in their favor. And I do like the Orioles a lot here. Gausman has not had a very strong season overall. He is also a pitcher who can give up the long ball. 18 home runs given up. You can also run on Gausman. The Orioles do have some speed. Cowser, Henderson, Holiday, Mullins, all these guys could be off to the races against Gausman, who I think has given up close to 20 stolen bases on the year. So I like this Orioles squad. They've obviously got the power, which is an issue for Gausman as well. And, if you believe into the home road splits, that's another point in the Orioles' favor. So I kind of like the Orioles here. I'm not sure what their ownership is going to look like. For pitchers, Sabre does have Gausman as the 4th highest owned pitcher on the slate, coming in around 25 to 30%. I'm probably going to go in a different direction other than Kevin Gausman myself. I do like I said, some of those Orioles bats, specifically the lefties with both power and speed. Gunnar Henderson, as always with the Orioles, near the top of my list. And then on the other side, going to be Dean Kramer going for the Orioles. Kind of the, almost the definition or epitome of the league average arm. Nothing really too remarkable about him. I don't play him very often. I'm not, super stoked to stack against him. I don't really think he's a very strong play on this slate, given the high contact rates for much of the Blue Jays lineup. But like normal, I'm not all that excited, honestly, to play Blue Jays bats either. Of course, Vladimir Guerrero, as hot as he is, has to be in consideration. But mostly going to be just kind of avoiding both sides of the Kramer versus Blue Jays bats matchup. Mild interest in Gausman, but my primary interest in this game overall is certainly the Orioles bats. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them do some damage here. How are you approaching Toronto and Baltimore, Mango?
Yeah, Toronto kind of flopped for us a little bit yesterday. I don't hate going back to them. I do think they'll get like a little overlooked on this slate for sure. Baltimore's the better play though, right? Baltimore against Gausman. I think it's a good spot for these guys. You talked about the power and speed upside. I mean, these are the things that we look for in tournaments. That's what we want to get to. And We talked about it a lot yesterday. They have a lot of good value with Jackson Holiday at 3.2. Mountcastle's only 3.8. Mullins 3.7. Urias at 2.4. I know he's not the best play, but at least he's a punted second base that has some power. So all in all, I think I want to play some Baltimore. I think they're one of the better stacks. Like, I prefer them over the Yankees. There's a couple stacks that we'll get to that I like more than the Orioles, but I think Baltimore's definitely in play in a pretty good one. And I do think Toronto, because they were higher owned than I kind of expected yesterday, I do think they might get a little overlooked today. If people are spending up at a lot of positions, I just don't see them spending up for like Vlad today. I just think they're going to end up going to other options. And like, Springer doesn't have a bad price at 4.3, Varsho 3.2. Like, there's a lot of value. The only thing that's unfortunate is, again, we don't have like pitchers to really spend on. We have at least one that I'll get to later that I like a little bit, but all in all, I mean, I think I like this game for sure. It's definitely one of the better games on the slate, and I'd want to be overweight on this one. I want to be overweight on the Blue Jay side and the Baltimore side.
Yeah, Kramer does have some pretty severe splits. He's been hit really hard by lefties over the last 2 combined seasons. And I don't really think he's changed much as a pitcher. So I do kind of buy into those splits a little bit. 205, ISO giving up 370 ex-Loba for Kramer against lefties. Lefties in the Blue Jays lineup tonight. Dalton Varsho, Spencer Horwitz, who has had a solid kind of half season here for the Blue Jays. Loper Fido, who they got from the Astros. He's a decent hitter. And I don't even mind Addison Barger down there in the 8-hole, prospect of some note. Hasn't done a whole ton yet in the big leagues. But, yeah, some of those Blue Jays lefties make sense. Of course, you can fill in, the hotter Blue Jays bats. Guerrero, of course, but also Springer. So I'm with you. I think Toronto makes some sense as a contrarian stack. I do like the Baltimore side better. But I could certainly see some runs being scored in this game. And on a 5-game slate, I don't think it's one to overlook for bats. Definitely way more interested in the hitters overall than either Gaussman or Kramer myself. Sounds like you are kind of on the same page there. Does bring us to Tampa Bay and St. Louis. This is the last game in the early window. We've got the 3 games all starting around 7:05 Eastern time, and then the last 2 games around 9:40. So big split there. It'll be interesting, kind of a good game theory slate where you can kind of, see how the first 3 games go for you, see how they go for other teams, and then adjust your late players accordingly, either, getting contrarian if you need to, or even, if you're up close top of a tournament, maybe even trying to figure out what your opponents might have for their remaining players. So I do kind of like slates like this from a game theory perspective, but for this game in particular, I think both these pitchers are pretty interesting. We've got Kyle Gibson going for the Cardinals. He has weird splits too, where he's averaging double the amount of fantasy points on the road than he is at home. He is at home here, so if you buy into that, I guess not ideal, but I do like this matchup. It's going to be a common theme on the show for the rest of the year. Righties against the Rays profile pretty well. A lot of high strikeout rates, not a ton of bats that you really fear. Gibson, he has overall pretty identical numbers to a guy like Dean Kramer. He'll give you close to 100 pitches most times out. Usually that's enough for 5+ innings. Of course, he has rough outings along the way. But I do like him a little bit here against Tampa at 7,900. A direct pivot, right, from Nestor Cortez. Ownership-wise, Saber has Cortez around 50% and Gibson around 25 to 30. So roughly half the ownership, I think, is fair for Gibson. I do think he is a solid play. I definitely like him with the ownership discount more than I like Nestor Cortez. Then Shane Baz going for the Rays has been pretty solid. Made a late debut about a month ago. They've been cautious with his pitch count. He actually had his highest pitch count of the major league season in that first start through 92 pitches. Since then, his high is 86, averaging about 80 pitches per outing on the year. Rays not with a ton to play for right now. I'd be surprised if they really let Baz go. They're a team that is certainly cautious with their pitchers in general. So that's a concern with Shane Baz, but He's 7,600. There is quite a bit of talent there. It's a pretty good park to pitch in tonight. Strikeouts are a little bit of a concern, but I do think Boz is at least worth considering at decently low ownership. Sabres got him around 10%. What about you, Mangone? How are you approaching this game, St. Louis and Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page a little bit here. I told you I haven't liked Boz for a while, but this is the spot I'll jump on it, I think, and I'll take my chances. Mainly because it's just there's not a lot of options today, and I feel like the upside is pretty good. I also don't think like everyone's racing to play him as well, so that's kind of something that's nice too. I'd rather him at lower ownership than higher ownership. So I'm playing Boz here. It looks like I also think I'm gonna definitely get some exposure to Gibson as well. I'm not scared of this Tampa Bay team. It is funny. This is the only outdoor game of the slate besides that Yankee game. So it's like two of them. And like that Yankee game is going to have like, a lot of like wet rain and be like 10 degrees less than the other game. So this is going to be the best, like quote unquote hitting environment. So I do think that, yes, you can make that argument if you're someone that likes to attack weather. I get that. But I don't think it's that great of a spot weather-wise that you need to just like account for that. Like I typically like to do it when it's like 9 degrees or more and it's just better spots. And I just don't think the Cardinals are a team that I'm scared of, and neither are the Rays. So I'm going to take my chances with some of these pitchers here. I think they're definitely in play, and it's not because I like them necessarily. It's more just like when I kind of look at the slate and I see some of the guys getting ownership. I know Gibson's getting some ownership. I get that, but Boz just doesn't seem like he's getting enough, and I'm just kind of playing the game. Who are the lower owned guys? There's like one chalkier guy I'm going to kind of get exposure to, and then call it a day. So that's kind of the slate for me, and I don't need bats in this game. Of course, if it's a 5-gamer, right? If you get a one-off of like a Brandon Lowe, I'll never hate that. I'm not going to hate like an Alec Burleson as a one-off in this spot. Like there's certainly some minis I think you do, but I am not full man stacking this game.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I do like the Cardinals lefties against Boz, I think maybe more than you do. We don't have a very big MLB sample size across Shane Boz. He's been injured so often. So across 3 seasons, though, he does have a really high home run rate given up to lefties in particular, sitting at 1.65 home runs per 9. He's been hit hard by lefties this year. And the Cardinals do have some guys who do some damage against right-handed pitching in general. So Burleson, Donovan, Nootbaar are the 3 guys that I'm looking at. You could look at a Victor Scott, the second down in the 9 hole. He's 2,100. And I do like some of these Cardinals bats, some of these lefties. It's actually, I think, a pretty interesting slate for a 5-gamer this time of the year. So I'm excited about this one. Yeah, Boz under 10%. I get that. Yeah, I'm just not sure the strikeouts are going to be there, and I'm worried about him getting pulled after 4 or 5 innings as well. Quentin says he thinks that he's just getting pulled because of close games. Certainly possible, but the Rays, their management of their pitching does always give me pause. And, Shane Bassett's coming off of a long-term injury, and I just don't see them really going crazy with the pitch count here. Still, though, I do think he's a totally fine play at under 10% ownership and a good price tag at 7,600. So it wouldn't fault anyone from playing him. I don't think I'm personally going to get there on my 5 teams, but I do think he's a reasonable play. I do prefer definitely Kyle Gibson in this same game. Hopefully we'll get sweet Travis Van Gogh. Oh, there he is. He's back. I was, giving it the filibuster while you were away there for a second. But, in conclusion, if you missed it, if you care, I do like these Cardinals lefties more than I do playing Shane Boz. And I don't think I'm going to play any Rays. If I were to go to them, it would be Brandon and Josh Lowe, who I think profile best against Gibson in this matchup. Let's get to the 2 late games, Philadelphia and the Arizona Cardinals. Not Cardinals. Best ball mode, man, going. Football, getting too close. I'm going to make that mistake more and more as we get closer to football season. You draft a million teams. You can't help yourself.
I already did that once, so
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen for sure. But Arizona Diamondbacks and Philadelphia Phillies are the 2 teams going here. We got 2 lefties on the hill. The Phillies have been really, really hot Kyle Schwarber. He hit 3 home runs last night. My teams weren't looking so good, so it didn't knock me out of anything. But he's been going crazy, and this team is getting healthier. For a while there, they were missing Turner, Harper, Real Muto. Now they've got all these guys back, and they profile really, really well as a team against lefties. Even the lefties in the lineup, namely Schwarber and Harper, swing the bat very well against same-handed pitchers. So I think those guys are certainly in play, but Trey Turner, Bohm, Real Muto, Castellanos, even some savings at the bottom of the lineup. I imagine that the Phillies bats are going to get a lot of ownership here against Jordan Montgomery, who has been abysmal this season. It's somehow the slate of the massive splits. Montgomery joins them. He has been horrific at home with an ERA near 8. He's given up 7 home runs in just 9 starts. Just really can't get anything done. They've been booing him, I think, a couple of times at home. He went on the IL and came back. That didn't really help anything. And, yeah, I just think this is an awesome spot for the Phillies. I think they're going to get ownership, but I do think it's deserved on this slate. And then on the other side, you've got Kobe Allard starting for the Phillies, a lefty, and the Diamondbacks all season long have been one of the teams that we like to target when they're facing a lefty starter. The Phillies do have a really strong bullpen, so that gives me some pause on the Arizona bats, but I think they're going to do some serious damage to Mr. Allard, and it's really the hitting in this game on both sides. I'm not playing either Montgomery or Allard, but I like the bats on both sides of the ledger here. What are you doing yourself, Ben, going with Philadelphia and Arizona?
Yeah, I love this game. I know the Phillies are chalkier, right? But I mean, you're gonna have to play some on the slate, right? And this is an offense that I want to play. So I'm definitely gonna have exposure to the Phillies. Montgomery's been bad. I was surprised to hear you say the Arizona fans booed at home because they lost pretty sure they lost their hockey team. So they don't really seem like they care. So good to see them show some heart booing Mr. Jordan Montgomery. He's not good. And this Phillies team, I just want to keep playing them. So I did have them yesterday. Kyle Schwarber got the old carry to the cash line. Thank you, Mr. Schwarber, for your job that you did, but not expecting it again tonight. I'll take one though if you want to just stay hot. So, but I like this Phillies team, and don't sleep on this Arizona team as well. I think there's some pretty good plays here. Kobe Allard, not a big fan of him. I mean, it's a 9.5 total. Get some really good righties in that lineup. I think this is definitely a good spot for Arizona as well. So I think this is a good game stack spot. You could do what you were saying, DC. Fade the early games and then load up on a game stack of this game. And I don't know if it doesn't work out and you feel like super dead somehow. I don't know if your pitcher has negative. Yeah, you can go stack Detroit or Seattle, but good luck. I don't know how that's going to go for you, but you could. I just wish there was a better game to go to rather than that one, but it will be low owned for sure. So, that's kind of how I'm handling Philadelphia and Arizona. I think it's the best game of the slate, and I want to load up on it.
Yeah, our guy Boynton mentioned scared of the Phillies pin. Me too, to some extent. But 5-game slate, you can't be too picky. And the Phillies have used their bullpen quite a bit recently. So I do think they're going to try to ask Allard to get through 4 or 5 innings here. And I can see the Diamondbacks doing some serious damage. In terms of individual bats, Ketel Marte near the top of the list for me. Obviously, no Christian Walker, who's on the injured list, but Gurriel, Josh Bell is super cheap. Suarez, Grichuk, all these guys look like pretty good plays against Allard and the Phillies. And then for the Phillies, I definitely prefer the righties. Obviously Schwarber and Harper can hit left-handed pitching just fine, but Montgomery itself has been pretty stingy, giving up power to lefty bats. So, yeah, Bohm, Real Muto, Castellanos, Turner would be my top 4. But if you're going for the full Philly stack, I have no problem, of course, including one or both of Schwarber and Harper. If they do a lot of damage, Montgomery not going to go deep into that game, and they'll have plenty of chances against the bullpen as well, especially on the road, guaranteed all 9 innings of a bat. So fun one there for offense. You can certainly see why the total is pretty healthy at 9.5. It is essentially a pick 'em, and I think we could see quite a bit of offense and hitting overall in the Philly D-backs game. Does bring us to the last game on the slate. It is the Detroit Tigers and the Seattle Mariners. Brian Wu, who has been a favorite of RPS of mine for sure, but has been it seems like on and off the injured list and having short starts, and you just never know what to expect from him. And then in his last start, he was absolutely rolling, so I'm sure that played a part, but they did let him throw 92 pitches. He does have one extra day's rest here as well. That was 7 scoreless innings against the Phillies, 6 strikeouts, no walks, 29 DraftKings points in that one for Mr. Wu, who is a really, really good pitcher on a, per pitch basis. No question about it. But you just never know if, his arm's going to start barking, if they're just going to be cautious with him and pull him after 4 innings or 65 pitches. So it is a risky play, certainly, at that 9K price tag. It does look like he's going to be high owned, 45 to 50%. Sabres got him projected for. That makes me, pretty uncomfortable in general, just given how volatile he's been in terms of the duration and the pitch count and the innings and all that. But on the other hand, he's pitching at home. We know how good he's been at home, how good Seattle pitchers have been at home. Again, we go back to another big splits pitcher. He's averaging ERA under 1 in 5 home starts compared to over 3 in 7 away starts. So awesome spot here for Brian Wu. It's just a question of, how deep will he get to pitch in this game? The nice thing, Mangone, is, even if kind of the bad scenario happens, he gets pulled after 4 innings, you might not need a big score out of your pitchers, right? Like 15 fantasy points, that could be SB1 on the slate, on a 5-game slate with not that many good pitching options. So I do like Wu. I definitely like him more than Nestor Cortez at the same ownership. And then Detroit going to be testing me on my any right-handed pitcher in Seattle theory that I've been rocking for most of the year with a lot of success, frankly. Going to be Kenta Maeda, who is scheduled for the bulk of innings here. He's been awful this season. I really think he's kind of just on his last legs. And then they looks like going to open with Alex Faedo, who I believe will only pitch an inning or 2. Looking up what he's done recently. Yeah, he pitched on August 4th. So he's not on full rest. He went 1.2 innings there. I would guess a max of 2 innings for Faedo. Then it should be Kenta Maeda coming out of the bullpen. But, throwing Maeda out there, even against the Mariners, when you're not even guaranteed that it's going to be him, you just never know for sure. Makes me a little uneasy, but man, do I like picking on this Seattle lineup. So I might try it on one team with Maeda. Sabres got Maeda at 20% owned. I have a hard time that would be the case, especially if it is Faedo who does get the opening nod, but that wouldn't make me super comfortable, even in Seattle, going with Maeda. I probably won't play many bats in this game. It would definitely be the Seattle side I would go to if I was. Probably the Seattle lefties, in particular, Cal Raleigh, Luke Raley, maybe a Polanco look okay to me, but certainly hard to get excited about Seattle almost any night. Anyway, long spiel there. What are you doing, man, going with Detroit and Seattle here?
Yeah, Kenta Maeda, I'm willing to take the shot, but I'll admit I didn't think 20%. That's got me definitely way more concerned. And if that's true, I won't like him. But if I see that going down, then I'll be like, okay.
I'll be really surprised if we got to 20%, but maybe.
Same. I mean, I know people love to play guys against Seattle. I guess it'll really be tested. Not just UDC, the field will be tested as well. If this was I guess on the night slate, I wonder on the night slate if you could get away with playing Faedo there. That's an interesting angle for sure. But it's just too many games to kind of consider him, I feel like. So overall, it's just, I think Maeda's in play if the ownership is down. Wu, I actually think it's very similar to Cortez, right? I don't like either play that much at ownership, but I got to play someone, right? I can't just not play anyone up top. And if I'm playing one, I'm with you. I lean Wu over Cortez. That's just the pick. It's not saying it's a lock or anything like that. But I think he's the guy just because of the ballpark, the matchup. It just all adds up. And that ballpark's been so good to us, so I'm happy to go there. So, and hey, the late night sweat's nice too, right? I know it's I shouldn't make my decisions like that, but it's definitely a rough slate. So, at least be able to root my pitcher on late night isn't the worst thing. So, or maybe make a pivot to Kenta Maeda if you really want to. So,
the Tigers don't have a good bullpen, but it does look like all the pitchers in their bullpen should be available to pitch in this game. So if we're looking at 2 innings from Fido, and then even if Maeda comes in, I would imagine, I don't know, maybe 5, but it could easily be 3 or 4 innings. He's not a good pitcher. And if he's really going to have some ownership, I'm kind of leaning against playing Maeda myself, even though earlier in the day when I thought he was just going to be the straight-up starter, I was kind of planning to pull the trigger. But the ownership and him being the secondary pitcher, the bulk reliever, has me a little bit gun-shy.
Yeah, I get that because I thought the same thing. We were both thinking it's going to be low ownership, and it's not. And we'll see, though. I'm curious to see what it ends up at. Another thing I want to mention is typically I would not consider playing bats in Seattle. I really don't. But counter is this slate just sucks, right? There are not any good hitting spots, and I know it's not a spot I want to do that. But if Maeda is going to have ownership, people aren't really playing Seattle, right? They play them on the road more because of the value that it has, and it provides you Chris Sale and all these other stud pitchers. We don't have those pitchers on this slate. Why not consider playing Seattle a little bit? So they're on my radar more than you think now after kind of talking with you. And it's really looking at these bats like Cal Raleigh, Randy Arozarena, Justin Turner, Jorge Polanco, some of the newer bats. You know what I mean? This Seattle offense, it has improved. I don't have the strikeout numbers in front of me. I was definitely curious what they've been since the trades. I'm sure they're still bad, right? But I'm sure it hasn't, I'm sure it's helped a little bit with those additions. Maybe not a lot, but it's helped some.
Yeah. So I actually like a lot of the hitting spots. When we talk about Phillies and D-backs, I think both those teams are in a good spot. I think both the Orioles and Blue Jays have a pretty good hitting spot. I don't mind the Cardinals lefties. And I like leverage Angels power bats against Cortez and, of course, the Yankees, who have, I believe, the highest team total on the slate to begin with. So I'm not exactly desperate for hitting. So I think, in that situation, I'll probably go away from bats in this game for the most part. I'll say this too. I mentioned this often on shorter slates like this one. You don't need to have your typical, 5-3 stack or 4-4 stack. Feel free to, get a little weird. Play a 2-3-2, or it's one of those slates where I think, you're going to have to try to pick off the few big hitting scores that they're going to be. I don't think a team is that likely to get to 10 plus runs tonight or anything like that. So, the few players that do hit home runs, you're likely to need them on your rosters. That's going to be the approach that I take on most of my teams, is just trying to, get as much leverage as possible. That'll include some Angels. That'll include some Orioles, of course. And, just trying to pick off some of the better spots, maybe get away from the chalk pitching in general, and go from there. So, like I said, I do actually think for a 5-game slate at this time of year, it is pretty interesting. And I do think there's multiple ways to try to get to the winner's third of the night. So fun slate overall. That is all 5 games. Let's get to stacks, pitching, home runs, and favorite hitters, all that good stuff. We'll throw it back over to you, Mangone. Favorite stack on this slate and favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, favorite stack will probably be Phillies. We'll go with them. And then contrarian one will be the Diamondbacks. I don't think they're getting that much ownership. I think we can put them in that category. It feels like the chalk offenses are Yankees, Orioles, and Phillies.
Yeah, I'm going favorite stack. I'm going with the Orioles, who I do actually think could qualify as a contrarian stack as well. But I like them against Gausman. They've got power. They've got speed. One of the best lineups in baseball. And Gausman just has not been that great. He's been worse at home. Blue Jays pretty bad bullpen, a lot going for the Orioles tonight for sure. I will definitely have them mixed in a lot of my lineups. And then contrarian stack, I chose Orioles as my favorite stack and not contrarian because I like the Angels here as a contrarian stack. You don't need to go for the 5-man, but 2-3-man Angel stacks, right-handed power in particular against Cortez, I think can really do some damage if it comes through for you. Individual hitters, as we mentioned, favorite 3, Zach Neto, Ohapi, and Joe Adell, but I'm willing to play Pilar, Drury, even Stefanik at 2,500 down there in the 9-hole. I think most of the Angels' bats are pretty reasonable plays against Cortez and the Yankees, getting that leverage, trying to get first in a tournament tonight. Most important pitcher, Mangone. What are you doing at SP tonight?
Yeah, most important pitcher. That is a rough one. It's probably Shane Baz. Yeah, it's probably him. He'll be the most important pitcher today, and doesn't feel great, but I'm gonna take some chances on it, I guess, and hope that we get the bad Cardinals, the ones that we saw last year. And honestly, these Cardinals aren't great either. So
yeah, it makes sense. I will go same game but different pitcher. I'll go with Kyle Gibson against the Rays. Like him quite a bit. I think he can get the job done at home against that Rays squad. Home run call, Mangone. Who's going deep tonight?
all right, we're gonna go with a guy not from one of my favorite stacks, but you talked about the lefties a little bit against Kramer, and let's go with Dalton Varsho up at the top at 3.2K. I think he can get the job done tonight.
I like that. And I've picked Jackson Holiday 2 games in a row for the home run call. He's hit a home run in both games. You got to go back to him, right? I mean, come on now. So Jackson Holiday going to make it 3 in a row for us out of that 7-hole. Going to take Kevin Gausman deep. Also has some speed. Could potentially do it on the base paths if you can't do it via the home run tonight. And finally, to wrap us up here, your favorite overall hitter on the slate.
Yeah, favorite overall hitter. Let's go with we're going to go with a Philadelphia Phillies bat, and it's going to be Mr. Alec Boehm hitting in the 4-hole against the bad lefty Jordan Montgomery. So we'll make him the best play off the slate.
I will join you on this one and go with Nick Castellanos, historically someone who mashes lefties, and going up against Jordan Montgomery, certainly a favorable matchup there. All right. That'll do it for this short 5-game slate. Appreciate all you guys watching. We'll be back tomorrow night, Friday night fireworks edition. That will be premium show, members only, but a nice big Friday slate. Mangone, you are off to where is the live final? You got the FanDuel live final. Was that one? That had to be one of the first live final seats that you won. Had to wait all year for it, but tell us a little bit about your journey coming up here to the FanDuel live final.
Yeah, I did win the sports betting one during COVID, and it was in beautiful New Jersey, and I didn't get to go anyways because of COVID, so it didn't matter. So, and I've won some online ones, but not the live ones. So that'll be a lot of fun. Going to Napa, I believe Steve Boynton will be there. I think he's going to be there, so I'll be able to hang out with him a little bit. I know he's joining on the trip. Bobby Hare's coming with me as a +1, so I'll be able to hang out with him. And Stats will be there, I heard, with a bunch of other good DFS guys. So should be a lot of fun. I'm sure it'll be like wine tasting on Saturday, and then I think it's the Sunday morning slate. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's like a very fast, like 7-game slate. It looks like I've already given it a little bit of a peek, so I'm excited to get there and have a good time.
Yeah, our guy Boyden. I think he's going for JBC, and no live final team to be in charge of. Boyden's going to be taking advantage of that open bar. So I hope the FanDuel open bar has the high noons stocked up, because Boyden, I know he'll do some damage there, as would I if I was in the live final. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you members tomorrow. We do have, of course, the Sunday morning show. That'll be 3. You won't be on that one, Mangone, but we'll have it here Sunday morning. I think it'll be me and Third and Schlong. And yeah, that will do it. Good luck to everybody. We'll be in the Discord answering questions, looking at that New York weather, all that stuff, getting ready for this 5-game slate. Till tomorrow, he's Mangone. I'm Draft Sheet. We're out of here.